Buon pomeriggio, benvenute e benvenuti a questo primo appuntamento di Le Lingue Live Plus. E quindi cominciamo oggi un piccolo corso che comprende una serie di 5 incontri su un tema a noi molto caro, a noi che ci occupiamo di lingue straniere molto caro, che è la Learner Agency. Vi terremo compagnia appunto per una serie di 5 incontri, l'ultimo dei quali è il 13 di aprile, ma poi diciamo ricapitoleremo qual è il menù rispetto a questo corso. Si occuperanno della formazione rispetto all'Agency Revolution, 2 presenze che per noi ormai sono, diciamo, fidate persone e di esperienza di scuola e di formazione insegnanti, nonché nostre 2 autrici e coautrici, Cristina Prandi, che adesso vedremo comparire, e dalla prossima volta anche Silvia Chini. Insomma, Cristina e Silvia si alterneranno. Intanto saluto Cristina che apre le danze quest'oggi e la ringrazio come sempre.
Grazie a te Laura, buongiorno a
Eh,
tutti.
le rubo ancora qualche minuto perché ho necessità di darvi alcune indicazioni, dopodiché appunto le lascio la parola e come sempre sarà possibile interagire al termine dell'intervento di Cristina, quindi interagire con noi e con Cristina secondo 2 modalità. Quindi potrete porre le vostre domande durante la diretta scegliendo se scriverle nella chat oppure se utilizzare l'app Tua Domanda che è raggiungibile con il vostro smartphone attraverso il QR code che di tanto in tanto comparirà in sovrimpressione. Ricordo che se decidete di appoggiarvi all'app Tua Domanda, il codice dell'evento è 64. Cristina Prandi è insegnante presso il liceo Giolitti Gandino di Bra, è formatrice, è animatrice digitale e collaboratrice autoriale ed è appunto da tempo volto al quale l'editore affida molto volentieri la sua formazione relativa alle lingue straniere. Ripeto, prima di lasciarla cominciare, vi devo ricordare alcune cose perché le Lingue Live Plus sono all'interno di una cornice che prevede una formazione riconosciuta anche su Sofia, ma devo ricordarvi che chi non si è iscritto su Sofia entro oggi può comunque partecipare ai nostri live e avrà comunque diritto all'attestato di partecipazione dell'editore, cioè quello di Rizzoli Education, ma non all'attestato di partecipazione ministeriale. La partecipazione è gratuita, ma l'iscrizione è obbligatoria e per garantire un'esperienza formativa completa e coerente, l'iscrizione comprende tutti e 5 moduli del corso. Il corso è presente anche sulla piattaforma Sofia e ha un ID che è 155241. Per ottenere la certificazione ministeriale, appunto, avete dovuto iscrivervi anche sulla piattaforma Sofia entro e non oltre la giornata di oggi. La certificazione Sofia si ottiene frequentando almeno il 75% dei minuti complessivi del corso, quindi 4 moduli su 5. Rispetto agli attestati, appunto, ricordo che l'attestato di Rizzoli Education sarà disponibile nella sezione I miei attestati entro le 24 ore successivo a ognuno dei moduli di formazione, come sempre per i live streaming per chi ci conosce già, indipendentemente dall'iscrizione fatta su Sofia. Mentre l'attestato con certificazione ministeriale sarà disponibile nella sezione Le mie iniziative formative che si trova nella piattaforma Sofia. Le slide e i video saranno disponibili su YouTube e le slide verranno lasciate a disposizione di chi ha partecipato agli eventi di formazione. Per chi vedrà questo evento in differita, ricordiamo che l'attestato sarà disponibile solo per i partecipanti che hanno effettuato l'accesso dalla mail di conferma di iscrizione entro la mezzanotte di oggi. E se desiderate essere informati circa la programmazione delle nostre dirette, vi invitiamo a iscrivervi al nostro canale YouTube premendo il tasto iscriviti. Dopo questa lunghissima serie di indicazioni, regole, eccetera, eccetera, lascio molto volentieri la parola a Cristina Prandi che appunto comincia per noi e insieme a noi a ragionare su che cosa intendiamo per learner agency e insomma come si può stare all'interno di una didattica che metta lo studente al centro o che renda attivo quanto più possibile lo studente nella vita di classe, nei rapporti con i compagni, nella relazione anche con l'insegnante. Quindi la ringrazio, le lascio la parola, noi raccogliamo le domande e ci vediamo alla fine della relazione di Cristina. Grazie.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everybody. And as Laura already said, welcome to the first of a series of webinars about learning agency. We will show you how a transformative approach to literature and language teaching can help us place student choice, critical thinking, and multimodal expression at the heart of learning. I would like to ask you to keep a notepad and a pen at your side in order to participate in some of the activities we will do together, because today all the activities I am going to engage you in will be a sample of the activities that you can use in class with your students. On your notepad, you can jot down anything interesting that arouses your curiosity or any question you would like to ask. Also, watching from a monitor will give you a better experience because of the slides that have written material on them. Now, let's start. You see this wonderful picture made using artificial intelligence. Picture this. Every teenager we teach walks around with two selves, the one we see in class and the one living online, posting, scrolling, leaving digital traces that never quite disappear. Literature has been obsessed with this idea for centuries. Jekyll and Hyde, Dorian Gray, Frankenstein, all asking the same question. What happens when our double starts revealing who we really are? Today, that question isn't fiction anymore. Our students already have a double and it's digital. In this webinar, we'll explore how the classic theme of the double can help them understand their online identities and how their online identities can make literature feel startlingly alive. So let's see the objectives of this webinar. I'm going to show you how a technical concept, the one of the digital twins, can become a humanistic and literary trope, the one of the digital doppelgänger. I'm going to share with you ready-to-use classroom activities and the assessment for these activities. And we are going to explore how this topic fosters critical thinking, creativity, and ethical reflection. Now, in our literature syllabus, I think we all deal with these novels. And because they are excellent examples of the theme of the double in modern literature. Let's revise them quickly. Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. Mary Shelley presents the creature as a manifestation of Victor Frankenstein's repressed desires, fears, and moral failures. Although they are physically separate, the two characters function as psychological doubles. The creature embodies Victor's ambition pushed to monstrous extremes, as well as the emotional responsibility he refuses to acknowledge. Their intertwined identities highlight the dangers of unchecked ego and the ethical consequences of creation without compassion. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Robert Louis Stevenson offers the most explicit version of the double, one man divided into two bodies. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde dramatize the conflict between socially acceptable identity and hidden impulses. Hyde represents Jekyll's suppressed desires, violent, selfish, transgressive, suggesting the idea that the double is not an external enemy, something outside ourselves, but an internal truth. The novella exposes Victorian anxieties about respectability, addiction, and the instability of the self. The Picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde's novel externalizes Dorian's conscience into the portrait that ages, decays, while Dorian remains outwardly perfect. The painting becomes his double, absorbing the consequences of his actions and revealing the corruption he hides from society. This split between appearance and reality critiques aestheticism, vanity, the temptation to separate beauty from morality. These novels are usually quite successful with our students. Across these works, the double functions as a powerful tool for exploring the duality of human nature, exposing the tension between public identity and private desire in a moment of our students' lives in which this is particularly topical, but also the tension between reason and impulse, creation and responsibility. All these aspects of the human nature are particularly appealing to teenagers, as we all know very well. But, as we all know very well too, our students also have a life, which is never totally analogic. Less and less so, actually. Sometimes the digital life is more real to them than the one they spend with family or friends. School frequently introduce in their syllabus modules about a safe use of the internet and the social media. Already from middle school or even from elementary school. And this is surely a good way to make the students aware of the possible perils that they might face when they are online. In the last years, and in particularly after the arrival of the AI, we have become more and more aware that the double has become external, networked, data-driven. It can be therefore a good idea to link these two topical issues into one teaching unit. So, as I said before, the activities I am about to propose you can be used in class with our students, starting with this, the first one. So, take your notepad, as I said before, or a scrap of paper, and I would like to ask you, what are the features of the classical literary doppelgänger, and what are the features of a digital one? So, literary doppelgänger versus digital doppelgänger. Go to your notepad, write down your answers. I am going to leave you 2 minutes in order to allow you to write down some of your ideas. And start writing now, but I can guide you also in this activity of writing down your notes, asking you, when we think to the features of literary doppelganger and the ones of a digital doppelganger, are they different? What stays the same? And also, what changes with technology? This is an interesting reflection. And these are also questions we can ask our students as a warm-up in our teaching unit about the double and the digital doppelganger. So I'm now going to sip some water and let you some time to write your answers. Now, what you should have written, obviously we do not have enough time to go to the end of each question, but you should have been able to write down some notes. And about the literary doppelganger, You might have written down that the literary doppelganger is a symbolic or a psychological double representing inner conflict. It's exactly what we said when I gave you a brief summary of the themes of the novels. We can say that the literary doppelganger is often used to explore themes like identity, morality, or even madness, mental imbalance. The literary doppelganger exists only within a fictional narrative. It is a fictional product. It is not interactive. The reader observes from a distance, we might say, but cannot influence what happens in the book. The literary doppelganger represents a metaphorical split in the self. So as I said before, it has to do with identity, it has to do even with a possible madness. It is usually tied to Gothic literature, Romantic literature, or even in a more modern way, psychological literature. It is created by an author for a thematic or dramatic effect. So this is what we usually think when we think to a literary doppelganger. But what about a digital one? What happens when we shift the focus from a real / fictional person to something which exists in a completely different world? Now, you might find it a bit difficult to read this slide, but don't worry, because you will have the full pack of slides in your materials, and I am going to go through the slide with you. I'm going to read it with you. The reason why this slide is so crammed is because I wanted to give you the juxtaposition between these two different kind of doppelganger. So the digital doppelganger is a data-based replica created from online behavior, algorithms, and digital traces. It is used for prediction, personalization, or surveillance. It exists in real life, in this case, as part of digital systems. We can interact. It is interactive. It changes based on the user behavior and the system input. And this is important because maybe we are not aware, but our behavior makes this data change. Instead of being tied to the world, the realm of fancy, it is tied to technology, to the AI, to social media, and data science. And last but not least, it is not created by an author for dramatic or thematic effects, but it is created by platforms, by companies, by algorithms, not by authors. Now, one of my guiding questions was what changes with technology? What remains the same and what changes with technology? Again, don't worry if you think this is a bit crammed, but it was again to give you a difference between the two. What remains the same? We are going to go through the list of what changes with technology, because this is the most interesting aspect as far as this webinar is concerned. So what changes with technology when we compare the literary and the digital doppelganger? First of all, the scale, the dimension. Digital doubles exist for millions of people, not for just one character, not just fictional characters. What changes with technology? Accuracy. Algorithms can predict behavior with surprising precision. So it is no more the flimsy idea of a writer, but it is something much more accurate. Surveillance. Digital doubles are used by companies, by governments, and by platforms. And we do not know exactly how these doubles are used. Also, another aspect which changes between the literary and the digital doppelganger is their autonomy. Digital doubles can act without the user's awareness. We have all been aware of this, I think, one moment or another in our lives, because sometimes something happens which takes to the surface this autonomy of our digital doubles. The permanence is also different, because what goes on the net, what goes into these, what becomes a digital trace accumulates and very, very rarely disappears. Another aspect is commercialization, because digital doubles are monetized through targeted ads, profilings. We are all well aware of this. And last but not least, identity shaping. That is to say, algorithms influence what we see, what we buy, what we believe, shaping the self rather than just reflecting it. If Dorian's portrait was a reflection of his corrupted self, in this case, the reflection also influences the person which sends this reflection. Now, let's read the definition of a digital doppelganger. This is a very synthetic one. I'm going to read it with you in order to give you the possibility to participate in the following activity. So what is a digital doppelganger? In a very brief way. A digital doppelganger is a partially autonomous digital representation of a person. So now we have come to the idea we should have of what a digital doppelganger is. Digital representation of a person, created from data about the person's behavior, preferences, and interactions. The digital doppelganger imitates aspects of an individual identity, such as decision-making patterns, communication style, or online presence, and can act or respond in ways that resemble the original person. This version is not a perfect copy. It reflects only the data it has been trained on and may reproduce, exaggerate, or omit traits of the real individual. Now go back to your notepad and try and refine or even challenge this definition. What aspects do you find challenging? What aspects do you find ambiguous in this definition? Again, write down, identify 1, 2 elements of the definition that you find particularly challenging, that you would engage your students in a reflection upon. Write them down, and this is already a kind of activity we can do with our students, and this is exactly what I did with my students, because you will see at the end of this webinar I will give you also examples taken from this activity made by some, which was done by some of my students, and the final task that they created. So now you should have focused on some of these aspects. First of all, partially autonomous. How autonomous can or should a digital double be? So you see, if we engage our students in this kind of reflections, in this kind of questions, we are really making them reflect, use their critical skills at a deeper level. Another aspect is digital representation. What forms can digital representation take? An avatar, algorithmic profiles, simulations, an AI agent, who knows? Created from data. Again, what kind of data are involved? And more interestingly even, who controls them? Another aspect in the definition was it imitates aspects of identity. What aspects matter most? Is it behavior? Is it personality? Are they appearance choices? Another element, it can act or respond. Act or respond. In what context does the digital double operate? Social media, customer service, simulations, and simulations of what? Not a perfect copy. Okay, what are the limits? What are the risks? Or what are the distortions of such representations? All these elements lead us to a reflection, us and our students, to a deeper reflection on ethical and social implications of the digital twins. Privacy, consent, ownership, and potential misuse of these data. So what is this digital doppelganger? Because so far I have just given you a definition which was fully challenging. We could decide that we do not agree with some of these aspects, or better, we are worried by the extent to which this collection of data can go. Now, pardon me if I am going to give you a furthermore definition. This one is taken from an article. You will find the link at the end of the definition, but also you will find the article on a packet of materials that you will receive a link to shortly. Now, the doppelganger began as a literary figure, an uncanny double that mirrors us, as this is what we said when we were talking about the double in literature. Today, digital technologies, social media, and big data have created new forms of digital doubles built from our behaviors, preferences, and traces online. These data doubles can be used in troubling ways. They can be extracted, monetized, or manipulated by powerful platforms. But they can also appear in more intimate forms, such as AI tools that mimic loved ones, or devices that anticipate our habits. The first time I did this activity with my students, I asked them what they thought a digital double was, and almost all of them said that a digital double, they thought it was a a loved one recreated, maybe their dead grandmother, recreated using AI tools. So they are not, and we are not fully aware of the risks behind collecting data. But also, commercial AI increasingly aims to build digital doppelgangers that replicate a person's skills or choices, sometimes to influence us, to influence these people, sometimes to assist them. These doubles are shaped not only by users, but also by corporations and governments that track, analyze, and sometimes construct them. Although the idea of a data double has existed for decades, today's constant sensing and data collection make these digital selves more pervasive and often less consensual. Self-tracking can even produce new identities that reflect back to the user, raising questions about authenticity, ownership, and the use of such doubles for surveillance, monitoring, and control. Now, all the activities we have done so far, as I said, can be replicated within a teaching unit. So we can decide that you can use these two definitions, the shorter one and the longer one, with your students. And we can ask them questions like these ones. You will see that these questions are particularly engaging because they ask the student to go to a deeper level. They cannot just cut and paste from the text that we have read from the definition, the short clause in order to use it as an answer. How do our digital doubles allow us to know ourselves and each other? So this is a very challenging question, and they must reflect on what they have read in the text. But also, what questions do they arise about representation, authenticity, and impersonation? Again, in the text, they will not find the exact piece of information. They will need to work at a deeper level, at a deeper thinking level. Now, as I told you before, this is material that I have prepared and we give you. So now, if you just want to go to this Padlet, you will find the text, the link to the article I used before for the definition of the literary, of the digital doppelganger. If you want to use the QR code, use your, for instance, your phone, your smartphone, or you can go to this Padlet, which is padlet.com/map_bacheche/double. I will leave you a bit of time. If you want to go to this Padlet, you will find all the materials I have prepared for this webinar, which is not only a webinar, as Laura said before, but is a course, the beginning of a course. As in a course, we receive materials to use at home, in class, in order to make our lessons different. This is exactly what I did for you this time. Now, we were saying that it is important our students engage themselves in activities that help them develop their critical thinking skills. In order to help them, we can embed the use of thinking routines in our everyday teaching practice. You might already know about MLTV, that is Making Learning and Teaching Visible, which was invented, which was theorized by the Harvard University the project 0. Or if you don't know them yet, or if you want to know more about them, you will find useful material on the net, because they are starting to become fashionable, we could say. You can either go to the site of Project 0 that you find in the slide, or you can watch Macmillan's videos, for instance, about MLTV and thinking routines. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with thinking routines, what is a thinking routine? A thinking routine is a set of questions, usually 3, 4, or a brief sequence of steps. If the thinking routine is not organized on questions, is organized on steps that are led by statements. And this sequence of steps is used to scaffold and support our students' thinking. So when we use these routines in a, as the word routine says, repetitively in our teaching practice, this will enable them to build a mental frame that enables them to go deeper into any kind of information. So the systematic repetition of these exercises, of these thinking routines, will develop the habit to critical thinking in the students, helping them step by step. If you go to the site of Project 0, you will see there are tens of thinking routines. Look for the toolbox of the thinking routines, and you will find them listed there and all precisely explained. You might be familiar with the most famous ones that are usually See, Think, Wonder, or Think, Pair, Share. Thinking routines have titles that are made of usually made of a sequence of verbs that accompany these subsequent steps. I will use a different one, and you will find in the materials on the Padlet the activity you can do with your students using a different article from the one that I took the definition of digital doppelganger from. This article you will find on the Padlet as article number 3. Obviously, we do not have enough time to read it all and in every particular element, but you can give this article to your students to read, and you can challenge them in the thinking routine entitled Take a Different Stand. What does this mean? See things from a different point of view. This activity was, in fact, designed by Harvard's Project 0 as a thinking routine aimed to help students analyze dilemmas. And it moves through 4 steps. And the steps are: first step, take a stand. So decide where you stand. This can be used, for instance, as a homework. You can give your students the article to read as homework and ask them at home, read or listen. You can also use AI tools for those students who cannot read very easily, or if you want, if you find the article too challenging for your class, you can run the article through a chatbot such as ChatGPT and have it made written in an easier language. But then, individually read or listen to the dilemma. In this case, the article explores some ethical concerns about digital doubles. and consider your thoughts about it. What's your view on the dilemma? So this is asking the students their idea. It is not giving them a prefab idea. This is asking them, what is your view on the dilemma? Make notes that help explain your perspective. So if you gave this as a homework, the following day, you can in class use the article to go on in the thinking routine and take the second step, which is entitled Stand Back. In small groups, 2, 3 maximum, look again at your original response. What had you not considered that other people brought up? Have you changed your perspective? Oh, sorry, I misread the line. So the second day is in small groups or as a class, share your individual perspective about the dilemma and listen to the perspectives of your fellow students. So this means active listening for our students. Then, third step, individually go back to your original responses and reflect. What had you not considered that other people brought up? Have you changed your perspective? And if so, what changed? This again engages our students in deeper thinking. And how has your thinking shifted after hearing your classmates' perspective, even if you haven't changed your mind? So this last question asks them to focus also on their feelings. So it is an example of a cell activity, social and emotional learning activity. Last step, which is the fourth, look beyond. So finally, look beyond this specific dilemma or case, in this case, these ethical concerns. Consider, how does the dilemma remind you of other situations explored in class? And here we can make them link their answers about the ethical concerns relating to digital doubles to the concerns related to the literary doubles, the concerns that the characters had. So when all these activities, the warm-up, these thinking routine activities aimed to make our students familiar enough with the concept of digital twins. So by now they should have reflected on its main implications. And so this is the final task in the form of an authentic task that we can submit them. So this is an authentic task I gave my 5th year of Liceo last year. I gave it to them. The results were varied, obviously, but it is not an impossible task. So you can adapt it. You will see there are ways that you can adapt it, but consider giving it as an authentic task to your students, because really you will be amazed by their answers, but what will come out from their work. So the instructions were: analyze how you and your friend, they were working in pairs, how you and your friend use the digital world, social media, apps, and so on. So they had to keep a sort of a diary of what they used and how they used it. Imagine and design a personal digital twin of yourself. So they had to put together the two selves that could assist you in your daily lives. Consider the data the digital twin would collect, how it would interact with the physical world, and what tasks it could optimize. Health, for instance, productivity, learning, whatever. When I thought of this task, I didn't know exactly what tools they were actually using in their everyday lives. Each pair will create a digital presentation using any tool they wanted, Canva, Genially, PowerPoint, any tool, and a basic visual representation. This means a simple diagram, maybe a Venn diagram, you see an example of it, or a digital model of your digital twin and its features. In the presentation, they will have to explain what kind of data your twin would gather. So they have to reflect, when I am using this particular app, what kind of data am I feeding in the system? So what kind of data your twin would gather, how the twin could help you make better decisions. Is it worthwhile to have a twin? Can the twin help me optimize my sleep, or suggesting study times or workout routines? Also, in the presentation, they had to give some space to ethical concerns related to privacy or over-reliance on data. In a moment, I will show you an example of this task completed by a pair of my fifth-year students last year. Now, there is an alternative. Maybe not everybody is as there is when they have to speak about themselves. Remember what we said at the beginning of this webinar. We are going to give them voice and choice. And here is the choice, because they can alternatively choose to create a smart city digital twin simulation. This is not out of the blue, because you will see there is an article on the Padlet I shared with you, in which you can, that is about digital smart city digital twins. So this will help them focus, understand better what is required of them. This digital smart city digital twin is perfectly aligned to the personal digital twin. So you'll see, you will be able to assess both works in the same way. So students will act as urban planners. They are not going to reflect on themselves, but they will reflect on their city. So they will act as urban planners, data scientists, ethical advisors, tasked with designing a digital twin of a city system related to traffic, energy, healthcare access, public safety. Their goal is to improve efficiency and sustainability, predict problems before they occur, and evaluate ethical risks linked to data use. Now, the smart city digital twin can be harder to define for our students. If it is easy to think about your personal preferences and the apps you use and so on, it can be a bit difficult for them to focus. So we can break up the instructions for them and divide these instructions into steps. For instance, we can give them the possibility to choose the urban system. That can be traffic and mobility, or, as I said before, healthcare access, or energy consumption, or air quality and sustainability, emergency activities, or any aspect that they find particularly interesting and they want to work on. So the first step is identify what you want to deal with. The second step is define the city's digital body. What data the digital twin collects? where do these data come from? And they, for instance, in the case of traffic and mobility, they might think of the data that comes from traffic sensors, cameras, GPS, and so on. In the case of healthcare access, the hospital admissions, the response times. In the case of energy consumption, smart meters, pollution sensors. It depends on the kind of aspect, the system that they decide to explore. Then they have to describe, as the other students did when they were talking about the personal digital twin, they will have to design the simulation and giving also examples of this, and then thinking of the optimization goals, that is the same as asking themselves, how does this help me, when they were doing the personal digital twin. So the students must show cause and effect logic, which is the demonstration that they are thinking at a deeper level. Step 5, ethical reflection, as they also did in the personal digital twin. And the final moment when when the final product is created. So the group deliverables, both of the student personal doppelgänger and the smart city one, are the digital presentation that need contain data sources, simulation process, and so on. The visual representation, so with the chart, for instance, the diagram, or with a flow chart, or whatever it is useful for them to explain the way the data are used. And the final short reflection. In the case of the smart city, would you want to live in a city like this? Why or why not? So, as I said before, it is, if we break up the task in this way, and if we explain the students what is expected from them, it will not be difficult for us to assess these two tasks, even though they are made in the same class. So there is the personal twin criterion, which aligns perfectly with the smart city equivalent. Personal data instead of urban data. Task optimization, system optimization. Ethical concerns, social and civic ethics. Creativity, innovation, and feasibility, critical thinking, societal impact. Now, this works, pedagogically speaking, because it maintains a conceptual coherence between the two groups. It also encourages our students encourages scaling up thinking, reinforces ethical literacy, supports creative and analytical learners, and feels authentic and future-oriented, because this is exactly what I was saying. If we are capable to make them see the connections between the literary doubles and the digital ones, they will have understood how literature, even a far-off book as, I don't know, Hyde and Jekyll and Hyde, literature is part of our everyday life. Now, as I told you before, this is again the link to the Padlet with the materials on. As I told you before, I am going to show you a an example from one of my classes. This was, as I said, this was made last year. And this is a good example, but it is not perfect. Two students, two girls, created their own digital twin. They decided to call this digital twin Bessia, putting together a crisis of their first names. And they even used artificial intelligence to create the face of this Bessia. And the face is, I can assure you, a sort of intersection between the features. It comes from the features of both of the students. So the face of Bessia really resembles what they look like. Now, as I said, they followed these instructions, so they gave a short introduction of what the digital doppelganger was. They spoke about the apps they use. As you can see on the right and on the left of this Venn diagram, they reproduced the logos of the apps they used, and in the intersection came Bessia. They organized, they divided their apps according to categories. So the ones they used for organization, the ones they defined utilities, the social media, the ones they used for entertainment. They decided, they reflected on how these could be improved. And in the last two slides, they also gave a voice to their ethical concerns. Now, we might be worried that our students use the AI to produce their tasks. Obviously, this is possible, and it's an everyday worry for us teachers. The possible solutions, in my opinion, are just two. The first one is to ask them to complete the task at school if you can access an IT lab, or if your school has a mobile lab, or if your school has tablets. Or, and this is, I think, the choice for the future, you and the class, as I did with my students, can decide that they can use the AI, but they will be required to ask an extension to their task. What is this extension? This extension is an extra moment of reflection, a doc file in which they were asked to reflect on the way that they had used the AI throughout the process. For instance, through questions such as, how did they use the AI to create images, to edit the text? They have to explain. Or they have to say how the generative intelligence influenced the digital twin. For instance, for the correctness of the text, for the depth and quality of the content, who knows? And how conscious was their use of AI? That is to say, which tools they have to list, the tools they used, how they selected the output that they received by the AI, what parts of this output was rejected, the material they decided to keep. Now, you will find assessment rubrics, the ones that used to assess these works last year, and again, do not use them if you do not feel confident. The best The best assessment rubric is the one that we create with our students, because it is shared, it is based on also the reflection of the students on their tasks and on the skills that they are required. But also you will find on the Padlet the example of this extension, extra part they were asked to produce in order to be allowed to use the artificial intelligence. Now, my part is over. I thank you for your participation in this webinar. I'm ready for your answers if you have any. So Laura, is back to you.
Eccoci qua, ti ringrazio molto Cristina, gli spunti sono sempre molti, variegati e permettono molta adattabilità anche rispetto al proprio contesto di classe, quindi insomma possono essere spunti effettivamente applicabili e credo che portino appunto a quel buon livello di partecipazione degli studenti che forse è quello che andiamo cercando in classe.
Sì, perché io uso materiale che uso io.
E
quindi questa cosa è stata sperimentata. Detta così sembra molto più difficile da attuare di quello che poi sarà in realtà.
Allora, senti, ci sono alcune domande. Parto dall'ultima, semplicemente perché appunto si lega alla valutazione, a rubriche di valutazione, eccetera, ma poi ci sono appunto altre questioni. Ci viene chiesto questo. Nel webinar si parla di rubriche di valutazione di allineamento tra task, ma non è stato approfondito come valutare in modo affidabile pensiero critico e riflessione etica. Quindi questa questione della riflessione etica effettivamente diciamo diventa un aspetto importante quando maneggiamo questi temi o queste modalità di lavoro. Quali indicatori concreti possiamo usare per distinguere una riflessione superficiale da una realmente critica? Domandona.
Domandona, ma in realtà c'è una risposta poi anche concreta. Allora, questa è sicuramente una questione centrale. Continuiamo a ripeterci dell'importanza del pensiero critico, continuiamo a insistere su una riflessione etica sull'uso dell'intelligenza artificiale, per esempio. Quindi come facciamo poi a valutare effettivamente il risultato di queste riflessioni? Intanto è chiaro che noi qui stiamo parlando di lingua straniera, quindi non ci basterà a questo punto verificare la correttezza linguistica, cioè non posso andare a segnare non ha messo la S della terza persona singolare, perché non è lì l'obiettivo del mio lavoro. O la completezza del compito, si è dimenticato mezza slide, ci sono sempre i pasticcioni che ne lasciano indietro un pezzo, però insomma ci sono altri indicatori anche concreti che possiamo usare. Intanto, primo, la capacità di problematizzare, cioè lo studente riesce a riconoscere i dilemmi, le tensioni, le contraddizioni, riesce a identificarli sia quando si parla di se stessi nel compito autentico, sia quando si parla di smart city. Quali sono i problemi che saltano fuori, che lo studente identifica? Sono cose banalissime, ah signora mia, oppure sono quelle che invece per loro sono importanti, e lì si incominciano veramente a vedere, come dicevo prima, avrete dei risultati che non vi aspettavate, perché in realtà i ragazzi, moltissimi, non tutti, ma moltissimi ragazzi hanno un approccio molto più profondo di quello che noi ci immaginiamo, semplicemente non glielo chiediamo, non gli chiediamo di tirare fuori questa profondità. Tra l'altro, se poi noi facciamo caricare dai nostri studenti su un Padlet, per esempio, le loro presentazioni, poi ognuno può andare a vedere i lavori degli altri e prendere spunto, ma anche riflettere su come gli altri hanno affrontato magari lo stesso problema, che è alla base delle thinking routines. Le thinking routines derivano dal make learning and thinking visible. Di ad alta voce, scrivi su un post-it la tua risposta al tuo pensiero e guarda gli altri, ascolta gli altri in modo partecipe per capire loro come hanno risolto, che risposta hanno dato, come hanno risolto quel problema. Quindi, prima cosa direi che un indicatore è la capacità di problematizzare. Poi l'altro è un uso pertinente di esempi. Quindi se riesce a collegare il concetto di digital twin con dei casi reali, e lì viene fuori veramente la capacità sia nostra in prima battuta, ma anche loro, di fare anche collegamenti poi con i testi letterali. Questo lavoro qua può essere fatto anche in classi su cui la letteratura non ha un peso così importante. Penso a classi di magari indirizzo, non voglio dire che ci siano serie A e serie B, però so che certi indirizzi, penso per esempio le scienze applicate, amano di più un approccio diverso, e quindi magari dargli questo aggancio per lavorare potrebbe essere uno stimolo di riflessione su temi letterari che noi vogliamo, sui quali noi vogliamo farli riflettere. Quindi capacità di problematizzare, dicevo. Poi uso di esempi pertinenti, poi consapevolezza anche dei limiti, di fin dove ci si può spingere, quindi riconoscono i rischi, riconoscono le implicazioni etiche, e poi, per esempio, se usiamo la thinking routine take a stand, che ho già proprio messo lì per questo motivo, come li vediamo evolvere, cioè dalla loro stand, dal punto iniziale da cui erano partiti al punto finale, come sono evoluti? C'è stato un cambiamento? C'è stato un approfondimento dopo il confronto? Allora, è chiaro che una riflessione superficiale, una superficialità scritta così descrive qualcosa ma non va sotto la prima pelle della cipolla. Una riflessione critica analizza, mette in discussione e collega. Nei materiali che trovate c'è appunto la griglia di valutazione e c'è proprio una parte per quello. Quindi vedrete anche come ho calibrato io i vari aspetti, perché adesso non sto a farvela vedere perché sarebbe un po' penalizzata dallo schermo, però scaricatevela e potete lavorarci sopra perché è un documento in doc.
Troviamo dei buoni suggerimenti di indicatori di valutazione.
Sicuramente, sì.
Allora, un'ultima cosa perché abbiamo fatto un po' tardi. Forse appunto una domanda, ma anche un po' un commento, una considerazione in inglese. Many things have changed with digital device. Now our students are always online. But what is really real now for them? How can we help them to avoid addiction? Anche questa è una domanda di peso.
Questa è una domanda alla quale, allora, le nazioni più progredite dal punto di vista della riflessione sull'educazione, dalla riflessione del governo, governativa sull'educazione, sono per esempio la Finlandia. La Finlandia è stata una delle prime nazioni che ha lavorato proprio sul pensiero critico, eccetera. La Finlandia sta tornando a carta e matita, all'analogico, non demonizzando i computer, ma di nuovo ricordiamoci che la tecnologia non è il fine, la tecnologia è il mezzo. Noi dobbiamo riuscire a far passare questo messaggio. Lo so che è durissimo, forse riuscendo a farli stare in classe senza il telefono a disposizione per distrarsi può già essere un primo passo. È sicuramente un lavoro lungo, un lavoro che richiede un'applicazione costante da parte nostra, che ci toglierà probabilmente anche le energie in certi momenti, però è un lavoro da fare. Sicuramente la collega che ha fatto la domanda, potremmo essere tutti noi. Quella lì è Ich bin in Berlin, sotto forma di sono preoccupato per come i miei studenti interagiscono con la tecnologia. Questo è sicuramente importante. Non voglio farci pubblicità, ma si è parlato di queste cose negli ultimi webinar di quel ciclo di webinar, proprio se vuoi dire magari 2 cose tu, così lo spieghi meglio, perché io ho una visione più parziale.
Certo, appunto, sono webinar che si ritrovano sul nostro canale YouTube, quindi lo ricercate per le lingue live e appunto sono stati proposti agli insegnanti anche in ottica interdisciplinare, quindi non necessariamente solo rivolti agli insegnanti di lingue, e sono delle riflessioni o appunto dei tentativi di proposte di utilizzo buono di tutto quello che ci viene dalle nuovissime tecnologie. Adesso il discorso sta diventando tanto grande e oggettivamente concentrato intorno all'intelligenza artificiale, ma sono, diciamo, questioni che cerchiamo, dicendo la nostra, cerchiamo, ragionando con insegnanti che poi per noi sono anche autori, di trovare appunto l'aspetto costruttivo e propositivo, e appunto l'aspetto che comunque valorizzi il mezzo e non renda un fine tutto quello che effettivamente ci viene un po' da demonizzare, no? Ecco, e che però non siamo in grado di arrestare, non è forse neanche quello
Ma
il senso.
infatti, è inutile, cioè non dobbiamo
Appunto,
averne una paura irrazionale, dobbiamo usarlo quando serve.
quindi lo trovate tra le playlist di YouTube, sia le lingue live, sia su Rizzoli Education, c'è tutta una serie di webinar sull'intelligenza artificiale e appunto ne abbiamo parlato in più occasioni. Allora, ci sono ancora un po' di domande, ma purtroppo abbiamo fatto molto tardi. Vi ringrazio intanto Cristina, perché è sempre molto generosa anche nel pensiero e nel ragionamento. Leggo dei buoni commenti, quindi intanto ringrazio tutte e tutti per l'attenzione. Vi ritroveremo appunto con la seconda parte, in cui appunto Cristina e Silvia Chini si avvicendano, per cui il prossimo turno, se ricordo bene, sarà il turno di Silvia Chini, e vado a memoria, ma lo ritrovate anche qui indicato nelle slide e poi indicato sul sito. Il prossimo appuntamento dovrebbe essere quello del 3 marzo, se ricordo bene. Quindi ringrazio nuovamente Cristina, vi auguro una buona serata e vi ringrazio per essere stati con noi e state con noi, e molto contenti saremo di ritrovarvi. Però eccolo qua, grazie mille alla regia. Quindi siamo a Student Centered Literature, quindi ragioniamo ancora di letteratura con Silvia il 3 marzo, poi c'è di nuovo un TikTok e un Instagram, e poi ridiamo la parola a Cristina per lavorare sulle choice boards e chiudiamo con Young Adult Literature, e quindi il tutto sotto il grande cappello della Learner Agency. Grazie a tutti e buona serata.
Grazie a voi. Arrivederci. Ciao.